hold while we connect your call to.
Hey, Shalom. I'm phone call for this. This is how can I assist you?
Yes, my name is I'm calling to ask some questions. A friend of mine heard of you guys, and they were wanting to meet up with another branch over in Memphis, Tennessee, but we couldn't make it over there. So while he's busy with school, I figured I could at least try to get some info for him before meeting up with him tomorrow over some coffee. Just like trying to understand, like, because he's been talking about you guys for like 2 months now, and I'm still trying to understand what y'all do and what y'all are. Y'all are Israelites?
Yes, sir. We're Israelites.
Okay. How does that work out? Because he's like talking about I think he said he was from the tribe of Gad. Because I keep hearing Gad over and over again.
According to the Bible, the tribe of Gad would be the so-called Native American Indians. So if your father is a so-called Native American, you would be from the tribe of Gad. Like me, my father is a so-called African American, so I'm from the tribe of Judah. According to the scriptures, the seed of Israel is determined by the father, and also according to Romans 8:16, if your spirit bears witness with the spirit of the Bible, meaning you fit the curses laid out in Deuteronomy 28 and the prophecies that are throughout the Bible, then you're an Israelite.
All right. So you say according to the Bible, because you're saying like with the tribes, like my friend said he's from the tribe of Gad, which okay, I understand because he is part Native American, and you say you're from the tribe of Judah. Is there anywhere where the Bible tells us where these distinctions are? Like, how do you know that this is how they are from the tribe of Gad is because they have Native American blood in them?
The book of Genesis, chapter 49, lays out the prophecies that would befall the children of Israel and the particular tribes in the last days. The Bible is a book of prophecy and history.
Okay.
And when your history lines up with those prophecies, that's how you determine.
Okay. All right. So I'll have to look into that more then. Another question I have is because I know he's in on this, but he says he's had doubts. So he's talking about keeping to the law, but he's still at the same time he's identified as an agnostic on this. He still clings to the idea of justification by faith. Do y'all hold to that, or like what is y'all's take on the doctrine of justification?
Yes, absolutely. When you read in the book of Revelation, chapter 14 and verse 12, it says, "Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Christ." So you have to have both. You have to keep the commandments and have faith in Christ.
Right.
Because under the Old Testament, which was the law of sacrifice, there were certain sins that you couldn't be forgiven for. For instance, if you were a homosexual under the Old Covenant animal sacrifice, your blood had to be spilled. Under the faith of Christ, you can repent of that sin. It's the same thing with not keeping the Sabbath day. Under the Old Testament, if you were found working on the Sabbath day, your blood had to be spilled. Under Christ, you can repent. So, we keep the law, but we also have the faith in Christ.
Right, but I mean, we both. I agree that I believe that we have to have good works alongside our faith, but I don't believe that following the works or doing the works justifies us, because from what I had read, and this is also what we talked about yesterday, like Romans 5:1 says, therefore being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. And Galatians 2:16, and I think this is the kicker for him, was knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ, even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. So
Right.
I can understand, like James talks about, that they're evidence of a saving faith, but that we're not justified by our works, or especially the works of the law. So how do you understand those?
Here's the thing. When it's talking about the law, when Paul wrote about the law, he used it interchangeable when he's talking about either all the laws or the law of sacrifice. Under the old covenant, you were justified by sacrificing animals when you sinned. So when it's talking about you're not justified by the work of the law, it's talking about animal sacrifice. That's where we're justified by the faith in Christ, like I just told you.
Mm-hmm.
Under the old covenant, there were certain sins that you could not repent from.
Okay.
But under Christ, you can repent. That's that justification.
So where in the so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, so yeah, okay, that's a good point. So I'm just curious where in the, since I guess the only one that really has that phrase is Galatians 2:16, where in the context of that passage does the phrase works of the law, is that just limited to the sacrificial laws? Since at least from what I've read, when it refers to the law or the Torah, it's usually referring to the whole 5 books of Moses, the whole laws that were given within the Torah. I don't see where it would make the distinctions.
Okay. It's in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10.
Okay.
Where it talks about the law being the schoolmaster.
Uh-huh.
When you read down, it actually clarifies that it's talking about the law of sacrifice. Because it says with those sacrifices, it couldn't bring you to repentance. It was a remembrance of sin every year. So.
And which verse is this?
Christ. That's Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, chapter 10. You read the whole chapter, you'll see it.
Okay. And so when it uses works of the law, it only refers to in that chapter as...
Well, it doesn't use that exact phrase talking about the works of the law, but it tells you that the law was the schoolmaster.
Right.
It brings us on to, a shadow of good things to come. Mm-hmm. And when you read down, it talks about what law is talking about when it says with those sacrifices.
Mm.
It was talking about animal sacrifice was the law that Christ did away with. Because he tells you in Matthew 5:17 that he didn't do away with the law. Or the prophets.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no contradiction in the Bible.
Right, I understand. But I see in Hebrews 10, so far see verse 8, it says concerning and what he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offering for sin thou wouldest not, neither hast pleasure therein, which are offered by the law. Doesn't that just simply mean then that the sacrifice
it's offered, those sacrifices that were offered by the law.
Right.
Is the law of sacrifice. This is what it's talking about, the law of sacrifice.
But couldn't that just also mean the laws in the whole commandments of which does include the sacrificial laws?
No, it's not. It's not talking about all the laws. It's only talking about the law of sacrifice.
Okay.
When you go to Revelation chapter 22, verse 14, it says, "Blessed are they that keep the commandments, that they may have life to the tree of life."
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't have done away with the commandments if that's how we get life to the tree of life.
Right. Well, so it says, "Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city."
Yep.
So, trying to remember the his commandments that is there. Who's the his that's there? I'm just asking because I'm just seeing this verse at the moment. I haven't taken time to look around it.
But it's talking about keeping the commandments. All throughout the Bible, Christ even says, he says, if you love me, keep my commandments.
Mm-hmm.
So, most people will go to Matthew 22 and 36 and say he's talking about those two commandments. Well, yes, he is. Mm-hmm. But those two commandments are some of the Ten Commandments, which the Ten Commandments is the umbrella of the whole Torah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
The only thing that was done away with was animal sacrifice. We still have to keep the other laws, statutes, and commandments, because think about it. If the laws were done away with, I could kill somebody and then turn around and say, well, I repent in the name of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what he came and died for.
Mm.
Because, what is that? Is that Romans chapter 3 and verse 31?
Mm-hmm.
Says, do we make void the law through faith? God forbid, we establish the law.
Right.
So, we got to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, and have the faith in Christ. Because without Christ, you can keep all the laws, you can keep all the laws if you want, but if you don't have faith in Christ,
mm-hmm.
then there's no advocate to the Father. Because he is the way to the Father, so you still have to have faith in him even though you're keeping the laws.
Mm-hmm.
So they go hand in hand.
Okay. So that's actually a good verse that you brought up, because one of the other ones that we had discussed, and I didn't even think about this, was it says in Romans chapter 3 verse 28, the few verses before that, that's talking about that we conclude therefore that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. But you would say that that's the laws and like the sacrificial laws, like with Galatians, right?
Right, that's the same thing when you're talking about the deed of the law.
So then, but then when it goes, sure.
No. When we're justified by faith, we're repenting in the faith of Christ, because Christ became that ultimate sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So in order to repent, you got to know what laws you broke, mm-hmm. what sins you committed, and you turn from those and never do them again. Mm-hmm. That's true repentance.
Okay.
Because like for instance in Christianity, mm-hmm. A lot of people repent every Sunday and then go right back into the same sin. Mm-hmm. That's not what Christ came and died for.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we would go with that for like Romans 3:28. But then here's where I'm confused. Since you brought up verse 31, is that it of course talks about, is he the God of the Jews only? Is he not also of the Gentiles? Verse 30 then talks about which shall justify the circumcision by faith and uncircumcision through faith. Then he almost like he's responding to what was stated in verse 28. In verse 31 says, do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid we establish the law. So wouldn't that then just simply be, if that's the case, wouldn't that be the same law that's mentioned in verse 28 versus what we're seeing in verse 31?
No, because again, the law we're talking about in verse 28 is sacrifice, because you can't be justified by the law of sacrifice anymore. Mm-hmm. Because, again, if we were still under that old covenant, the law of sacrifice, mm-hmm. if I broke the Sabbath day, there is no sacrifice for that. Mm-hmm. My blood had to be spilled. Mm-hmm. Or if I was a homosexual, my blood had to be spilled. Or if I was caught in the act of adultery, the man and the woman, blood had to be spilled. So Christ came and he established the law. But through his faith, you're able to repent from those things that you couldn't repent from before. Mm. So that's where it's making the distinction between the old covenant and the new covenant. Mm. The old covenant was animal sacrifice. The new covenant is the faith in Christ. Mm. That's the in the change between the old and the new. We still have to keep the law.
I see. So the verse 28 is talking about a different law compared to verse 31.
Right.
Okay.
Verse 28 is talking about sacrifice, and verse 31 is talking about all the law.
Okay.
Because just like today, you know, it was the same argument then between those that followed Christ and the scribes and the Pharisees. The scribes and the Pharisees were like, well, okay, so if you're saying that animal sacrifice is done away with, then we don't have to keep none of the laws, right? And Paul's like, no, that's not what we're saying. We keep the faith in Christ and we establish the law. We don't make void the law through that faith. We establish it. When you establish something, you make it stronger.
So, okay. Then I guess I got one more question before, then I won't bother you any further today. Is that because I don't know what I ended up calling and catching y'all doing or anything. So he keeps on talking about that, and he's not fully committed to this idea, is the idea of Israelites are the only ones that are saved from at least from what I get, from what I've heard that he's told me about what y'all are teaching and preaching versus Gentiles. How's that work? Because this is one I'm really concerned about.
Okay. Matthew 15, verse 24, Christ says that he's not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So he, out of his own mouth, said he only came for Israel. When you read Luke chapter 1, verses 68 through 71, it tells you that he visited and redeemed his people. And he raised up a horn of salvation for the Israelites, out of the house of David. Revelation 21, 10 through 12 tells you that the holy city of Jerusalem has 12 gates, and on the 12 gates are the 12 names of the children of Israel. So it's all throughout the Bible where, even in the Old Testament, New Testament, where it only talks about salvation for Israel. A lot of people get John 3:16. They take that one particular scripture out of the context of everything that's around it, and says that's talking about salvation for the whole world. When you read the book of John chapter 3 in context, these are two Jews talking, because Christ is a Jew, Nicodemus is a Jew. He's talking about being born again. So from the top of the chapter down to verse 16, the conversation doesn't change. These are two Jews having a conversation about repentance. And when you read in the book of Acts chapter 5, it clearly tells you that God raised up Jesus to give repentance and forgiveness of sins to the children of Israel. So that conversation doesn't change throughout the Bible.
Okay.
Repentance is for Israel. Now, as far as the other nations, yes, the other nations will be in the kingdom of heaven. They will be in the kingdom of heaven in a servitude position to the children of Israel. There's a ruling class and there's a serving class. Just in every kingdom, it's like that. And of course, those that are going to be rebellious and don't want to keep the laws, even in Israel, 2/3 of the Israelites are prophesied to die because of their rebellion. So if 2/3 of Israel is going to die for rebellion, of course the rebellious of the other people are going to die as well when Christ comes back. But there are going to be those of other nations that are going to want to keep the commandments, and they will be in the kingdom of heaven. But again, there's going to be a ruling class and a serving class.
Okay. So, going over one of the verses that you brought up, because this is one where we had sort of a small, me and my friend had a small impromptu debate about it last week. So the part where it said, "But he answered and said, I am not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel," and he says this to the Canaanite woman.
Right.
She would continue to beg for, saying, "Lord, help me," and would then say, "Is it not meet to take the children's bread, and to cast it to the dogs?" So would you agree that by children he's referring to Israel there?
No, the children is Israel.
Right. That's what I was asking. If you would agree that the children that's referenced there is Israel.
Right.
Okay. And who would you identify the bread as in that verse?
So, what was the question? What was the next one?
What was the word? We're talking about the children's bread. What would you say that the bread that belongs to Israel is?
The bread is the promises.
The promises?
The promises. Yeah, the promises, the blessings. Now, I know what you're getting at. He did give her a blessing, but that's because she accepted her role. When you read down, he says, "It's not meet, to give the children's bread on the dogs."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Truth, Lord." And he said, "Thou, woman, your faith are great." And he did bless her because she accepted her position as a dog.
Right. But wouldn't the bread also can be just simply be seen as Jesus, since he did identify as the bread of life as well?
Not in that context of where he's speaking like that. It's not referring to himself as being the bread in that
How that?
context.
Okay, so why is that the case?
Because the children's bread is the promise, is the of salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And she was begging for just a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, there you go.
Okay, so
But
how?
it's not
Okay.
it's not the same blessings and promises that will be given to the children of Israel.
Mm-hmm. So.
The kingdom of heaven, everlasting salvation.
All right. So how do we know it's just like a general blessings plural in that context, when you said it be a blessing, a promise, which I believe the Bible does talk about concerning Israel and their specific promise. They were promised the Messiah and the Savior in the Old Testament, that they were waiting on him, the Messiah. I believe it was Isaiah that said, "And unto them a child will be born," and such. So couldn't it still, in that context, with it being a blessing, still then at that point still be considered Jesus, since he technically would be a blessing sent unto Israel?
No, because what he actually did there was healed her daughter of the devil she was vexed with. So that's all she asked for, was to heal my daughter. He said, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
That's a blessing than the blessing of having the Son of God. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because through the Son of God is the pathway to the Father. And that's
Right.
only given to Israel.
Okay. All right. So before I go, I just want to leave one thing, and you just tell me what your thoughts are on this, because this is how I've always understood it. So I would view that the children are Israel. I think you and me would agree with that. We do have a disagreement on bread, but with that being said, when it comes to being cast to the dogs, I would agree that would be the Gentiles. There, but the word that is used there is konarion, which is the different one in compared to when Jesus refers to not cast meat to dogs, or that the dogs eat up their own vomit, which would be kuon, but konarion referring to puppies, basically is the term that is used there. And then when she said, of course, that, and yes, the dogs, the kunarion, eat of the crumbs, which fall from the master's table, it goes back into the culture of that they had these puppies eating of the leftovers, because that they didn't have a canine dog chow or anything like that back then. The dogs would just get the leftover crumbs and table scraps basically after their masters were done, and so as a result they would again get the food that was left over. So along with the bread that was given to them, then the leftovers would be then casted onto the dogs. So in that analogy, to me, it would seem that Jesus comes for the Israelites first. He didn't come, I would agree with that statement. He did not come to the Gentiles, but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, but that he would then come for the Gentiles later, which would be in a consistency with one statement that the Apostle Paul made. I forget what the verse is, but it's one where he's, I think it's in Romans, where it's Rome 1:16, where he says, "I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and then to the Greek or the Gentile." So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, especially going to Romans 1:16, where it mentions this first then second fold division.
Okay. As far as Gentile, are you aware that there are two types of Gentiles in the Bible?
There's two types of them?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
There are natural Gentiles, and then there are those Gentiles that were Gentiles of the flesh, meaning they took on Gentile customs, but they weren't natural-born Gentiles.
Mm-hmm. Is there a way to figure out who those are by some sort of a other verse or definition context?
1 Corinthians 12 is one, and Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 11 is another.
Ephesians 2:11. Okay. Wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands.
What you got to understand with Paul too is Paul always refers back to the history. Because remember, there was a split in Israel where the northern kingdom split from the southern kingdom after the death of Solomon during the time of Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And the northern kingdom, when they went off into idolatry and started picking up customs of the other nations. That's why they were started being called uncircumcision. So they were Gentiles in the flesh in times past. So there's a distinction between Gentiles.
Okay.
When it says to the Jew first, then to the Gentile, the Jew is the southern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, Levi. Those particular Gentiles, the northern kingdom that was in those Gentile customs. Now, as far as everybody else getting the crumbs, like it talked about in Matthew 15, those crumbs would be like I talked about before. They will be in the kingdom of heaven in the servitude position. And servitude or being in the servant class doesn't necessarily mean slave in the mindset that we see slavery from the past, because it's not going to be brutal like that, because we're not commanded to be that way. So when you think of servitude, don't think you're going to be a slave getting beat to death and starved to death and worked to death. That's not going to happen in the kingdom of heaven.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I wanted to ask about. So thank you for helping me out there.
Hey, no problem.
All right, and have a good day, and God bless.
All right, send me.
Bye.